You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cricket Podcast. We're just days after we decided that the World Cup was over. It's back on. New Zealand have been crushed by South Africa. Pakistan have picked up a win against Bangladesh, and Afghanistan overcame Sri Lanka to leave the possibility, the door open perhaps, for the Afghanistans making a late charge into the semi-finals. I'm Jack Hope. I'm joined today by Maxwell Brown to talk about what has been an interesting start to the week in Cricket World Cup land. How are you doing, Max?
Yeah, I'm good. And it's not just Afghanistan, is it? Pakistan are sort of in with a shout as well. Obviously, Afghanistan have a game in hand, but Pakistan have got New Zealand coming up, so they'll be thinking maybe they've got a little chance of an unexpected charge towards the semi-finals as well. So, yeah, it's not over unless you are English or Bangladeshi.
Yeah, or you believe in reality. No, let's pretend that this is definitely on. This is definitely on. Yes, exactly. Before we get into all of the cricket, and we'll probably go reverse chronologically. Does that sound right, Max? Yeah, we'll do the game today, the game on Tuesday, the game on Monday, in that order. A little reminder to everybody listening and watching to click like and subscribe on whichever platform you're following the podcast on. It keeps us going, keeps us growing. And that's the name of the game from our perspective. So a big thank you to everyone who has done that already. And a big thank you to everyone who is opening their phone right now, going to whatever app that they use and following those instructions. Max, in today's cricket, what happened?
Well, Jack, can I start by asking you a question?
No.
What? I'm going to do it anyway. What do you think? Which of these questions do you think has the most obvious answer? Is it A, Boris Johnson asking Patrick Vallance whether putting a hairdryer up your nose would kill COVID? Or is it B, asking New Zealand, what would you like to do at the toss?
I mean, they're both astonishing acts of idiocy, aren't they?
Yeah.
However, I fully expect one of those two to be involved in one of those acts of idiocy. Well, the other group, the other people, the other person, the captain of the New Zealand cricket team, I would never have expected to be involved.
No, I think it's the surprise, isn't it? But anyway, New Zealand won the toss and they put South Africa into bat. After everything we've seen of South Africa and what their one weakness might be, it's not going out and setting you a target that you can't chase down. That is not their weakness. But that's what New Zealand did. They put South Africa in and they asked them to set a target for them to chase down. And it went horribly, horribly wrong. Quinton de Kock scored 114 off 116. Rassie van der Dussen 133 off 118. Those two setting a perfect platform after admittedly a slightly slow start, and they just gradually sped up as the game went on and as New Zealand ran out of bowlers. That should also be acknowledged. And then David Miller came in and smashed the ball to all parts. Even Aidan Markram came in for a cameo to hit his only ball for 6. It was bad for New Zealand. Really, really bad. Jimmy Neesham, 69 runs, 1 wicket, 5.5 overs. That's an economy rate of 12.5. If anybody needs the maths doing for them, that's not very good. And not really who you need bowling the final over. Not his fault, but that's how it ended up. And in response, New Zealand, well, they never had much of a sniff, and so it proved. Marco Jansen, 3 wickets taken in early, Maharaj in the middle to make his stats look nice, and ultimately it was a canter for South Africa. 167, New Zealand all out, an absolute hammering. Bad for their net run rate. South Africa all but there, and like you said, maybe there's life. Maybe there's life in the tournament, Jack.
Possibly. Let's go through South Africa's scores batting first to talk about how bad this decision was. They got 357 today, Max. Against Bangladesh a week ago, they got 382. Saturday before that against England, 399. The week before that against Australia, 311. And then to open the tournament, they got 428. Their scores chasing 271 for 9, crawling over the line against Pakistan. 207 all out v the Netherlands. And if you actually go back to the warm-up matches, they played New Zealand in a warm-up game. New Zealand set them 321 and they failed to chase it. A little bit of Duckworth-Lewis action in that particular game. But yeah, like it did. Eyebrows were raised, I think, about when that decision was made. And then to make matters worse for the Kiwis, and I know you can't control this, Matt Henry goes off with an injury. So all round, a shocker.
Yes, of course, after
the New
they
Zealanders.
lost Lockie Ferguson in the previous match to injury. Tim Southey was back though, so that was another man into the slaughter. He got a bit of treatment towards the end, although he started quite well. So yeah, I mean, not only the loss itself, but there's a few more issues for New Zealand to think about. I mean, I will sort of play devil's advocate a little bit. I can kind of see some of the thinking behind the decision to bowl first. If you sort of look at Monday's game, I think it looked a bit easier to bat when Afghanistan were chasing compared to Sri Lanka setting a target, but some of that may well be down to the quality of the Afghan bowling compared to the quality of the Sri Lankan bowling, it should be said. And, I mean, New Zealand are a reasonably well-equipped side to try and restrict a side and chase down the runs. But I think sometimes there's just there's an elephant in the room that you have to consider, isn't there? In South Africa, their bias for setting huge scores is so obvious and so in your face. It does seem that maybe that was just the obvious thing to do, and well, hindsight suggests it was anyway.
Yeah, definitely. Hindsight suggests it was. Another century for Quinton de Kock, Max. I don't know if you saw the stats on this. Quinton de Kock played 17 World Cup matches prior to being managed by King Legend at the Lucknow Supergiants. No centuries. I think he's played 6 since. Is it his 4th century of the tournament, Quinton, or is it just 3? Just 4 centuries. So it's a 66% century rate for Quinton de Kock in this tournament. He is pretty phenomenal at the moment, isn't he?
It's an incredible run of form, and there seems to be no stopping him at the moment, and it's just everything going right for South Africa at once, isn't it? I mean, Van der Dussen scored his second as well. I mean, that I think it was the second 200-run partnership between de Kock and Van der Dussen in this tournament. So, I mean, talk about everything coming together all at once, and all of your batters hitting form at the right time. But I mean, de Kock's looking like a complete player at the moment, isn't he? I mean, who was it that tried opening with spinning? It was Pakistan tried opening with Iftikhar Ahmed against him. I mean, he's clearly getting into teams' minds as well now. It's got to the point where he's in such good form. People are spending a lot of time thinking about what you have to do about Quinton de Kock, which is, well, a nice position for South Africa to have, given the embarrassment of riches they've got around him. So it's certainly looking ominous for everyone else, but again, the chasing issue is still there and yet to be tested properly. So that's got to be, whoever plays South Africa next, they have to bat first, surely.
What I find quite scary about Quinton de Kock is that if you get him out, you're just closer to having to bowl to Heinrich Klaasen, as England found out. I mean, like it's a good thing to get probably the batter of the tournament out, but it's also a bad thing. So
do you think that's why? Do you think that's the reason for his form at the moment? It's not so much that he's batting brilliantly; it's that people are like, you know what, I don't actually want to get this guy out. I'd rather he stuck around for ages and only scored at 112, because when Heinrich Klaasen comes in, he's going to score at 150, and that's an absolute disaster. Is that the reason? Is that what's going on?
No, it's just an observation that is what happens if you do your job with the new ball. Then Heinrich Klaasen comes in and smashes you around in the middle overs. I thought it was also quite funny. Aidan Markram faced one ball, hit it for 6. That kind of summed up the innings. I thought that was a real, chef's kiss, cherry on top from Aidan Markram. I mean, there was a point actually in this innings where, probably just before Rassie van der Dussen went stratospheric, where you were kind of thinking South Africa might lead themselves. Not sure. I mean, I think 300 would have been fine, but
leave some
with
runs on the
Clarkson
table.
and with Miller not really utilised, and with Markram not in yet, you thought that perhaps they were going to leave a few runs on the table. And then Rassie van der Dussen found this other gear as well. We don't see too often from him, but was very impressive nonetheless.
Yeah, I think you can say the same about
such a good score.
I think you can say the same about de Kock as well today. I mean, he was going a bit quicker than van der Dussen, but both of them, they were both going at less than a run a ball for most of the innings. But there was sort of after that halfway mark, they gradually sped up. There wasn't an explosion. Well, there was, from van der Dussen at the end of his innings, there was basically once he got to 100, he went mental. But from sort of maybe 70 to 100, they both just gradually sped up. And there wasn't like an obvious change of gear. It went from sort of being like 5-ish and over, and then just sort of out of nowhere, they'd managed to work their way to South Africa being close to 6 and over, and that was still with 8 overs left. And I think that's what impressed me so much about the innings, like how well it was paced in the end. Obviously, they benefited a little bit from the fact that New Zealand were a bowler down, but that's possibly part of the thinking. I mean, that happened early. They knew it was a factor. So that, you take all that into account. You think about the fact that at the end, actually, they are going to have to try and find some overs out of Glenn Phillips or Ravindra or Neesham, and they took full advantage. So yeah, perfectly paced, lovely to watch, bit of everything, and then the cherry on top at the end.
Yeah, 120 off the last 10 overs for South Africa, which is pretty much as good as you can hope for. It is good. And it's the first time, I think, as well, Max, and we speculated before the tournament that it might be a problem for them. But I think this is the first time we've really seen New Zealand's fifth bowler, or the combination of fifth bowlers, get murdered. All of them going for 7.5 plus and over. I mean, Neesham 12.5 and over. I think there must have been something tactical to that. And Trent Boult, for example, bowls his 10 overs, goes for 49 runs, picks up a wicket. You're thinking, good work. Like, it's not your greatest day at the office, but by no means is that a disaster. Especially, I think, as he picked up one of the openers, didn't he? So he gets his early wicket. Top stuff from Trent. Mitch Santner as well. I mean, he doesn't pick up any wickets in this game, but in the context of the match, 58 runs off his 10, holds down an end. Elsewhere, it's sort of an explosion. One thing that I think will be tricky for New Zealand to negotiate moving forward is Henry going off injured. So if my calculations are correct, Max, Matt Henry, Lockie Ferguson, Kane Williamson, and Mark Chapman are going to miss at least the next match that the Kiwis have. That will be Saturday's game against Pakistan. Yeah. Which, given where they are at the moment, 2 games to go.
It'll be nice and easy to pick a team.
Oh, yes, quite. They will literally just have to play the 11 fit players. That's going to be a problem for them, though.
Yeah.
They probably need to win that match. I don't know if it's quite must-win territory. I think, but it's close to, and it would be a real disaster for the Kiwis if after the start that they had, they somehow conspire to drop out of the top 4 in this tournament.
I mean, it's a bit schedule based, isn't it? That's the thing. We looked at their fixture list, and this was kind of something you could maybe see happening early on, because it was, India, Australia, South Africa, back to back. And even, at their best, New Zealand, if you took those games out and put them at different points in the tournament, you wouldn't be surprised if they ended up losing all 3, which is what's happened. So they've got an opportunity to, it's all in their hands. I mean, they're significantly better than Pakistan, who've been in this tournament, and they're significantly better than Sri Lanka. So I don't think they should be too concerned. I mean, you think about the England game, they went into that basically with two seamers, didn't they? Lockie Ferguson went down injured, and they basically had Trent Bolt and Matt Henry to use, and that worked perfectly well. So they know how to deal with it, I guess is the point. They've got experience of being in that situation, and they know what plans to put in place and what tools to use and how to structure the bowling innings to make sure it's not too much of a problem. But I suppose the counter to that is that they are playing their last 2 games in Bangalore, aren't they?
So it could be a run fest.
That could be a run fest, and it could be quite easy to take down Glenn Phillips and some of the other bowling. So it will be interesting, and it is, it's like I said at the top. I suppose Pakistan and Afghanistan are going to be looking at this, thinking that they've got a real shout, especially with Pakistan playing New Zealand. They got to go into that game all guns blazing, and we could see a twist. But I think they just need to get over the line, just the one win, and they've got 2 shots at it. So I think they'll be okay. But you never know. It gives us something to look forward to.
Well, I mean, what it means is Pakistan probably need a win in that match, and they probably need to win it convincingly.
Yes.
To swap the net run rate round. I mean, it's almost half a run net run rate, which is quite a lot. 7 matches into a tournament.
Yeah.
But if that does happen, then Pakistan play England, who have been abject in the last match.
Pakistan got a gimme in the last game.
Could be in their hands. I thought one final observation I had on this match is South Africa. I mean, their net run rate plus 2.29 now. I went back through the last 5 World Cups and I had a look at different IPLs as well. And I think you can make a case for net run rate being a better indicator of success in the knockout stages of a tournament than the actual number of wins in the group stage. Certainly when you look at other sports, I know there's quite a complex algorithm in the NFL that looks at total points scored over a season to predict future games, and that is a better indicator of whether a team will win than the number of wins that they've accumulated. I think what I'm saying, Max, is that the manner of South Africa's wins so far, the fact that they have been so devastating, is really good for them. Like they're really looking scary, even for a team like India. Obviously, that match is on Sunday, and we're going to be previewing that a little bit later in the show. But from where I'm sitting now, I'm just really, really starting to believe in this South Africa side.
Yeah, they're just so, everything about them is well balanced. That's what I like the most about the South Africa team. Obviously, the batting is the obvious strength because they've gone out and smashed the ball around every time they batted first. But you also look at the bowling, and they've got such a nicely rounded attack. You've got, the left arm angle with swing early on. You've got Rabada and Ngidi who can move it, but also you've got the slower balls and the variations, and then you got Coetzee who's got a bit more pace and a bit more hit the pitch. So there's a bit of everything there. And then, I haven't even mentioned Maharaj, who's, a high class spin bowler, and they have the wrist spin option if they want to use it depending on conditions. So they've got options for different conditions. And, we saw them do that earlier in the tournament. They brought in Tabraiz Shamsi specifically for the one game, and he was excellent. And they've got a brilliantly paced batting lineup, which is firing. So it's all coming up South Africa at the moment. They are looking really good, and that obviously stands them in good stead. It's just, can they shake off the moniker that they have? Well, it's interesting. We got basically the 2 teams that we expect to go and win it are both ones that are known for perhaps letting things slide just at the key moments in big tournaments. So is that going to open the door for Australia just to shoot up through the middle? Should we lump all our money on them?
I mean, I have been saying this as well. I mean, like, head says South Africa and India are the best 2 teams in this tournament.
Yeah.
Heart, not heart. Like
gut.
Bad heart. Yeah.
Diaphragm.
Pit of the stomach is telling me that South Africa, that Australia are actually going to be the ones lifting whatever the name of the Cricket World Cup trophy is. Did you know that?
No, I don't.
No, neither do I. Maybe it's just called the Cricket World Cup. Max, I think that's enough on New Zealand v South Africa. We've got a couple more games that we'll be talking about after the break. Pakistan v Bangladesh and Sri Lanka v Afghanistan. So do stick around. We'll be back in a few seconds.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
So with the New Zealand result coming today, that means that kind of reverse repercussions mean that the two games that we're about to talk about, Max, are actually more exciting than if we talked about them.
Yes, they were more exciting than when we watched them.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome back to the Cricket Podcast, by the way. Yesterday it was Pakistan v Bangladesh. Do you want to tell us what happened?
Yep. So, we'll get through the Bangladesh innings nice and quickly because we like to spend as little time as possible talking about Bangladesh at this World Cup. Shaheen Shah Afridi, he turned up finally. Couple of early wickets, 3 for 23 from his 9 overs. Very impressive from him. And Bangladesh, well, Lytton Das and Mahmudullah and Shakib, they got a few runs. No one else did anything. 204 all out. A paltry effort. Very poor, but that's what we've come to expect from their batting in this tournament. And it does just go to show how unimpressive the England victory over them really was. What was impressive, actually, was Pakistan's chase. They dropped Imam ul Haq and brought back Fakhar Zaman, and he scored 81 of 74. So a good move from them. And yeah, I mean, it was a pretty impressive effort. They chased the runs down in 32 and a half overs. So double, well, not double quick time, but pretty sharpish, and a bit of a net run rate boost for them. Obviously, as we said, not enough to really get close to New Zealand quite yet, but still a step in the right direction. So, there's a bit of thinking there that they need to chase the runs down quickly. They did it with a bit of impetus, Babar Azam aside, and maybe this is the turning point for Pakistan. We were talking about Australia coming up through the middle and doing what we don't really want them to do. Maybe this is the moment where Pakistan's fortunes reverse after their trials and tribulations. They're not out of it.
That could be the case. To preface what I'm about to say, like that could be the case. Pakistan did a lot of things right in this tournament, and then some things that they hadn't done so far. They took early wickets as an example of that. But they took wickets sort of the whole way through the innings. They seemed to have better plans, and then when it came to batting, I think it's been a bit weird that they dropped Fakhar after the first match anyway. But him coming back into the lineup made them look just sort of better all round. There was a bit more impetus, a bit more drive, a little bit less sort of meandering and waiting for Rizwan to do something. Like
he hit 7 sixes.
Yeah, exactly. The thing was done by the time Rizwan came in. And the formula for the tournament so far for Pakistan have been like, oh no, panic everyone, and then let's hope Rizwan survives cramp for long enough to get us over the line. So it was good to see them win in a different way. The caveat to all of that is that this was Bangladesh, who have, I mean, really speaking, probably been worse than England in the tournament. Other opinions are available, but that probably is true. Even with England sitting bottom of the table, I think Bangladesh have been worse. So yeah, a little bit of a pinch of salt. Like I'm not looking at this Pakistan side now and thinking
they're a force
redux. Yeah, I think they play New Zealand at the weekend. They're probably not favourites for that. They play England in the last game, and they're probably not even favourites for that. It's a step. It's a step in the right direction. It was a bad week all round for the old Hack family, wasn't it? Inzamam fired or resigned, depending on your reading of the situation, as head of selectors, and then Imam dropped from the team for a player who looks to be about 3 times as good. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, then there's all this rumbling about the agents, isn't there? The players.
I haven't heard this.
I've not delved deep into it, but there's some rumblings about selection and players having the same agent and some, maybe some nepotism going on. So Basically, what's happened, Jack, is it's the usual Pakistan blow up when things don't go quite right. All this stuff comes out and people get fired, and then somehow it all comes together regardless. So, we've got that to look forward to.
I did see a quote from, and this was a protected source, a senior player in the team, who said that the PCB was secretly hoping that Pakistan would fail so that they could make some changes, chop some heads off, and put some new heads on.
Because they only just hired a new coach this year, and then they were talking about changing it all, just sort of late summertime, and eventually decided not to. So, I mean, it's all speculation, but that kind of fits the picture of what went on, in the last few months. So, and again, it's Pakistan, so it's entirely plausible based on historic behaviour. It's good though, isn't it? It gives you a bit to talk about, and it's quite good fun to watch, and it distracts from other teams' failings.
Yeah, it does. I don't have much more to say on this game, and we've got quite a lot of matches to preview in part 3. So I'm happy to move on if you are, unless you have any final observations.
No, not really. Okay. I think we can leave that one there.
Yeah,
I think this is interesting of the 3, isn't it?
It's one of those games that will fade into obscurity, I think. Yeah. Nothing wrong with that. They can't all be winners. Monday's match, though, Max, might not be. This could have repercussions later in the tournament. Sri Lanka v Afghanistan. I mean, I build the show as kind of like Afghanistan, can they make the semi-finals? So I think this is where that starts, even though I think we could probably both acknowledge that Pakistan are the team that might inherit New Zealand's spot. But let's dream for a moment here. Afghanistan v Sri Lanka, what happened? And then let's extend the dream.
Well, Sri Lanka welcome back Dushmantha Kamira. That's one thing to note. Because Sri Lanka, it wasn't all about Afghanistan and can they do it. Sri Lanka were in the same position as Afghanistan. If they won this game against Afghanistan, they were going into the next few games thinking maybe we can do it. And they played New Zealand on the final day. So between the two sides, this was actually a massive game for who can take pole position of the outsider who is most likely, but still quite unlikely to make the semi-finals of the World Cup. And that is obviously that's that's something that everyone aspires to have. It's a really high profile trophy to win. So big game between these two. It was Afghanistan who won the toss, which I think was quite important from watching the game, and they made the call to put Sri Lanka into bat, and Sri Lanka struggled. It was a really good bowling performance from Afghanistan once again. Fazal Haq Farooqi back in the side, and Mujeeb the standouts, 4 wickets and 2 wickets for each of them, and also both going at under 4 and over. They put the brakes on. Basically, they kept Sri Lanka in check, didn't let them get any momentum, and it was a bit of a almost down to Mahesh Theekshana to get Sri Lanka up to anything resembling a score. 241 in the end, not that good. But Afghanistan, as we thought, not the best batting side. But I think the real story of this game, Jack, is how impressive and professional this chase was. I mean, we didn't really rate much of the Afghanistan batting before the tournament. I'm still not sure how much I rate it, because again, this was against Sri Lanka, whose bowling attack is robbed of quite a few players, and Kamira was coming back for his first game in quite a while, so not exactly coming off a run of games. But nonetheless, they were really impressive, especially after losing Gurbaz early, who's obviously he's been their standout player, probably the most box office guy in the lineup. But numbers 2 to 4, they were sound. They kept things calm, turned strike over, batted really nicely, and then at the end they did it with a bit of a flourish to put a little bit of icing on the cake. I continue to be more and more impressed with this Afghanistan batting side. Is it maybe just a case that they needed a bit more exposure and a bit more game time and to get a run of form together? Maybe we just hadn't seen them much, and that's why we thought they weren't very good.
I don't think it hurts the exposure and the game time. I don't think it hurts the bowling did the job and had them well in the game. And I agree, it was very impressive from Ramat Shah and Hashmatullah and Azamatullah as well, batting at 5. I do think that Sri Lanka's bowling plays a role in this. I mean, it has been pretty bad the whole way through the tournament. Just the game against England aside, where I don't know, what happened there. And I think that does help them. They're probably playing a bowling attack that, it definitely is one of the weaker bowling attacks in the tournament, if not the weakest bowling attack in the tournament. Even with Kamira coming back in, it's not particularly good. And I do think we need to bear that in mind. If you look at the individual performances, I think Ramat Shah outbatted his batting average by 26 runs, Hashmatullah by 28 runs, and Omarzai, that was his highest ever score in ODI cricket. So these aren't typically what these guys do. However, when you needed them, if you're an Afghan, they were there. They were there in the crunch, and there's a lot to be said for that. These are runs that will live, I'm sure, long in the memory for those 3 guys and for Afghan cricket in general, because they're now, as a result of this, mixing it in a World Cup, aren't they? They've got an even record, a 3-3 record, a game in hand to go, definitely above Pakistan and level on points with New Zealand, and that game in hand is against the Netherlands. Like there's a not unrealistic expectation, I think, at this point for Afghanistan to be joint 4th. The net run rate's a problem for them, and I don't think this batting is good enough to overcome that. So it would take some pretty incredible bowling against the Netherlands to put them in a situation where they can eliminate that as a factor, or maybe make that a factor that is in their advantage column. But this World Cup's gone brilliantly for Afghanistan, and so many of their players come out of this with credit. And I think, as you say, Max, we've been really impressed by Gurbaz in the other games. For him to get a duck and the rest of the team to chase this down with ease, cruise to a victory here, says a lot about the character of the side and where they are at as a collective. So well done, Afghanistan.
Yeah, and we're talking about a side that come into this World Cup with was it one World Cup win in ever, or one or two?
I think going into the England game, it was 17 consecutive defeats, which is, I think, 3 World Cups.
They beat Scotland, didn't they? I think that was their only victory in a previous ODI World Cup. So I mean, they've come out, by a wicket. So whatever happens, they've won 3 games. They've beaten England, they've beaten Pakistan, and they've beaten Sri Lanka. Like, that's 3 big cricketing nations, and they've beaten them all, and they beat them all comfortably as well. We're not talking kind of freak incidents where something weird's happened and it's been one guy's gone mental and they've snuck over the line. It's been team performances, and they've outplayed the other team basically to a man and won comfortably. And you just look at it thinking, man, how did they lose to Bangladesh in that first game? That game at the wrong time, didn't it? If you put if you shift everything back a bit and stick Bangladesh at the end, you are looking at this and thinking like they're in with a real shout. I mean, that loss has hurt them massively, and the last 2 games are Australia and South Africa, so it does make it look very difficult. But just the what if scenario, you can't help but think about it.
Yeah, I mean, with that win, and assuming they beat the Netherlands, they'd have 10 points from 7 matches, and I guess they'd just be praying for some rain in one of those 2 other matches, and they'd be in the next round, which would be wonderful. Look, they still can do it. It's not impossible. They're going to have 2 matches.
All they need to do is win the toss against South Africa and bat first, and they do have a chance. South Africa will be through by then.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. It isn't inconceivable that their spinners have a day out against Australia. It isn't that could happen, or as you say, South Africa, who are pretty much qualified now, maybe take their eye off the ball, have another wobble. These things do happen in cricket, and I think it's been a really good story from this World Cup, and crucially as well, that third win probably means that they will make it to the all important Champions Trophy.
Yeah,
which is what this World Cup's actually all about. Qualifying for the Champions Trophy.
Well, it is now.
Exactly. Max, I think that's it for the cricket. Should we take a break and then we'll come back and chat about the next few games? I think our next show is on a Sunday. We're having like an extended break, an extended mid-tournament break, unless we can force Ross to do a solo show.
I'm sure he'd love to.
Friday. Yeah. So we will be back on Sunday with a mega show, but I think that will work quite well with the games coming up. But yeah, just to let you know. Take a break.
Yep.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cricket Podcast, where we're going to be previewing the Cricket World Cup matches between India, Sri Lanka, Netherlands, Afghanistan, New Zealand, Pakistan, England, Australia, and India v South Africa. So a bunch of games to get through, some more important than others. We'll do them in chronological order and probably focus on the ones that have, I think, qualification implications. Max, the first one is India v Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka are effectively out of the tournament at this point in time. India playing for, first place. Anything you want to say about this other than how can India possibly lose?
I suppose Sri Lanka will be looking for a bit of retribution for the Asia Cup final where they got absolutely stamped on, but I can't see them getting it. If anything, it'll just be a repeat. They'll just be hoping they score more than 56 or whatever it was.
Yeah, I think maybe from an India side, there's a couple of guys with the bat who haven't really done anything in this tournament. And,
so maybe mix up the order a bit.
Yeah, I mean, when I say haven't done anything, I mean I'm thinking here sort of about Shubman Gill and Shreyas Iyer. Shubman Gill in particular, a lot of people tipped him to really dominate this tournament. Had dengue fevers, come back, shown flashes for sure. Didn't he get a pretty tasty 50 against I want to say Pakistan, but no statement innings yet. We've had statement innings from Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli, and King Legend. Actually, we had a big statement innings from King Legend, didn't we? Not from Shreyas Iyer and Shubman Gill yet. So I think those two will probably be looking to make their mark against a weaker bowling attack. They'll be hoping they bat first, because if Sri Lanka bat first,
they won't get a chance
against India's bowling attack. That could be tough. That could be tough. Playing in Mumbai, so I'm sure there'll be a lot of support for India in Mumbai. Friday, Max,
as opposed to the rest of India, where where they generally support the other team.
Friday, Max, is the Netherlands v Afghanistan. There are a couple of things at play in this match. I think. So first of all, we've got the Afghan story, and we were talking about that and how if they win this match, it sets up a scenario where they might have to win 2 matches, but potentially one match would get them through to the knockouts of the Cricket World Cup, which would be unbelievable. So there's loads for them to play for. The Netherlands, on the other hand, they're having a pretty good tournament themselves. 2 wins is probably 2 more wins than they were tipped to pick up. And now there's the very real possibility that they can sneak their way into the Champions Trophy. Their final 3 matches, Afghanistan, England, and India, they're not going to beat India. They've got a good chance against England. But this will be the one. This will surely be the one that they're targeting. What do you think they can do to overcome a confident Afghanistan?
To be honest, I think it's probably a case of what they've been doing against everyone else. I think they've got a way that they know how to play. They generally like to put some runs on the board and, get the other team to chase them down. They bat really deep, so they're never necessarily out of it. And I think the fact that it's at Lucknow is going to be really interesting. We've seen some contrasting games there, haven't we? We've seen a game where there was, I think, a really nice balance between bat and ball, where you could score runs, but there was a bit in it for the bowlers. In the England-India game, it was clearly a lot harder to bat. I think the India, batting side struggled a bit, and the England side struggled substantially more. And there was a bit more on offer for the bowling, and seam and spin as well. So I think it'll be really interesting to see if the Netherlands can make the most of that. But I would fear that those sorts of conditions may play into Afghanistan's hands just a little bit more, with the Faruqi coming off the back of those 4 wickets, Naveen being as sharp as he is, and then obviously Majib's been fantastic in those games that Afghanistan have won and been really key to causing problems. And there's always this sense when it comes to sort of the associate teams that when it comes to sort of the mystery spin, that's where some of the problems arise. If you can't pick it, it all goes a bit wrong. We saw it when their innings collapsed in a heap against Australia, where Adam Zampa bowled a couple of googlies and it looked like they were playing blindfolded. So, I mean, I think that would be my major concern for the Netherlands in this game, that maybe they struggle to deal with Rashid Khan and Majib, and that maybe that leaves them a bit short of where they'd want to be. But they've got the tools to restrict Afghanistan as well. So I think it's going to be a really interesting battle. And that is obviously assuming that we get a sort of another pitch that's quite good for bowling. But I know they've relayed it, but based on what we've seen in Lucknow in the past, I wouldn't be betting too far away from something like that. So it's an interesting one. It'd be great for Netherlands to make it to the Champions Trophy. That would be a fantastic result for them and a fantastic sight. So I'm supporting the Netherlands, but I think it will be an Afghanistan win, and that's obviously what we want for the tournament and jeopardy.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. Saturday, it kicks off with New Zealand v Pakistan. That's the early game. Relatively delicately balanced, I think. I think a full strength Kiwi side is better than the Pakistan team. A depleted Kiwi side probably still better, but I think it's much more marginal. For me, Max, this is basically going to be a big battle between New Zealand's top order and Shaheen Afridi, which isn't, it's not an uncommon theme in Pakistan cricket matches. But I think this maybe even more so than normal. I think if Pakistan can't get early wickets, then New Zealand could potentially run away with this one a little bit. But if they do, could be up for grabs.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'd be a case of whether New Zealand can, if they bat first, can they bat Pakistan out the game? And then, if not, it's what can they chase down? It's New Zealand's batting that are probably going to have to do the heavy lifting in this game. But I think Pakistan are probably not a bad side to play if it's the batting that you're relying on. I think, you can be fairly confident that Pakistan aren't going to get too far away from you, barring maybe Iftikhar going mental at the end and scoring 70 or 30, which he does have in his locker, in fairness. But it's unlikely that Pakistan are going to take the game away from you with the bat. So I think New Zealand, given the issues they've got, Pakistan probably not the worst team to be playing in that situation. I think they'll have enough. I think they'll do it.
Yeah, I think the other factor here. We talked much earlier in the show about how South Africa were really successful against New Zealand's fifth bowler. I don't see that level of game awareness and intent in the Pakistan team. I can see them meandering through 10 overs of Glenn Phillips and Rachin Ravindra and taking sort of 60 runs and being like, yeah, nice.
Yeah, I think
run a ball for 10 overs. Come on.
Might be one just to backload Santner a little bit more. And, some of the earlier overs that you might bowl with Santner, chuck Ravindra in and just expect Pakistan not to do much. I think that's a good point.
Also, I mean, for a ground, and I know you don't want to project everything that happens in T20 into an ODI. That's not necessarily how it works. But this is a ground in T20
It is
especially
tiny.
where sixes dominate. And I just think that New Zealand have got more capacity to hit 15, 20 sixes over an innings than Pakistan. There just aren't many six hitters in the Pakistan side. And it really, really is a ground where it's quite easy to clear the ropes.
I mean, Pakistan might just drop Fak as a man as well and be like, look, mate, we told you power play sixes is not what we're about. You can't be doing that shit. You're out.
I mean, it's not. It sounds far-fetched, but it isn't actually beyond the realms of possibility, is it? I'm really looking forward to that one. It'll be. It's a little World Cup surprise that we're going to have a game that actually does carry a fair amount of relevance suddenly, when we thought that there was a pretty good chance that we would be watching the tournament peter out. I actually looked at the qualification odds to make the final four. New Zealand are still 1-4 on, which is about an 80% chance of qualification.
Yeah,
Pakistan, making up most of the other 20% with a little bit for Afghanistan as well. So it's not, even if you factor in profit margins and stuff there, like most of the bookies are pretty confident that New Zealand are getting through.
Yeah.
If this game doesn't go to plan, though, I think it really does open it up. So for the tournament, let's pray for Pakistan to win and somehow still be in things when they go into that England match to finish things off. Speaking of, in the afternoon, it's England v Australia. Given where these two teams are, Max, it's quite hard to come up with any reason for why England are going to win. I don't know if there's anything that you have in your locker.
Maybe a David Willey swan song.
Well, there's two things to talk about from this match, actually. You mentioned one of them there, David William. We'll get to that. But first, there was a golf incident, wasn't there? So if you are looking for reasons to be hopeful, Glenn Maxwell fell off the back of a golf buggy, banged his head, and is in concussion protocol. And they think that he will be out between 6 and 8 days. Obviously, with a concussion, you never really know. It could be longer than that. Definitely out of Saturday's contest. It must have been quite a hard fall, you'd think, because I mean, we can only speculate. Was he hanging on the back and someone sped off too quickly and he overbalanced, or did he lean back too far? I mean, it must have been dicking around.
I refuse to believe no tomfoolery was involved. My completely in the know speculative guess is that it was a classic. Just as he was getting on, someone drove off for a laugh and he fell over backwards, and that would be that's what I'm throwing in there. We don't really know, do we? But ultimately,
who do you reckon did that?
Good question. David Warner. David Warner was driving, surely.
Warner. I feel like Warner's actually a little bit too sensible. I reckon Warner out and about would be a bit of a fun sponge. I think I'm going to blame the Bison, Mitchell Marsh.
You reckon?
I think he's the sort of person that would conduct hijinks of that nature on the links. We can only speculate. We don't know.
We can.
Maybe it was Alex Carey.
He was speeding off from a haircut.
I think he's going to get smashed. I haven't got any analysis.
No. I almost don't want to watch it because it's going to be bad. I don't have hope for England in this game, but it's Australia. If they can't pick themselves up for a game against Australia, then what hope have they got?
Then David Willey is the other story. Arguably England's player of the tournament so far. He announced his retirement. We wondered when this would start happening. Retirements from the team mid-tournament, and it's yesterday is the answer. He basically said he doesn't want to do it anymore. He's retired. That's what it means. There's been a lot of buzz around this. Lots of people saying that he's been treated quite badly, and they're probably right. It doesn't necessarily seem like it was all his decision. He was obviously one of the guys who didn't get a central contract, one of the 27 guys.
Unrelated to that, does it?
Yeah. And I don't know if you saw this, but his wife liked a post from the Telegraph talking about how that might have been the reason on her Instagram. It hasn't been a particularly edifying episode, I think, the whole World Cup, but particularly the issuing of contracts and how they were distributed mid-tournament, excluding one of England's better players, seems cack-handed. Max.
Yeah, it's just poorly thought out, isn't it? I mean, the whole contracts thing, that's where it starts, isn't it? Just not. I mean, they've made the point that there's no good time to announce contracts because the calendar is so busy. But in the middle of a World Cup does seem like possibly the worst time you could choose, because I mean, you could just do it in three or 4 weeks, and when the World Cup's over, let the dust settle a bit and do it then. I mean, that is not hard, right? I mean, you can make the argument that the negotiations have been ongoing and people are wondering whether they're going to be in, and they've got the spectre of it looming over their heads. But I mean, it's just, the problem is the distraction, isn't it? You know what English media is like when it comes to cricket, especially when things aren't going well. It's pile-ins, it's speculation, it's throwing people under the bus, attributing blame. And when you throw something like this in the middle, it just gives so much, fans the fire essentially so much, and gives that little bit more for people to cling on to, and then have a go at, and that makes it worse for the players out there, and makes it hard. So I think it's all just been badly managed, not really very well thought through, and English media is going to get the bit between its teeth and throw the corpse around a bit further, like a tiger playing with its prey, I think.
Yeah, I think after the World Cup would have made more sense for this announcement. I also think, if you're looking for a time in the calendar where England aren't playing, there's a 2 or 3 month block during the IPL where you could just drop this and it would probably disappear under the radar within the wider cricketing consciousness. So, what do I know? What do I know? Nothing, Max.
Nothing.
Basically, I've never negotiated a contract with anyone. So there's that.
That's not true. It's Manscaped.
Okay. Manscaped, of course, yeah. Sunday, the 5th of November, fireworks night in the UK and potentially in India as well. India v South Africa at Eden Gardens. That's a proper cricket World Cup fixture. I think that's a hotbed of cricket. Eden Gardens. Yeah. India v South Africa, mainstays, top v second top. This could be game of the tournament. It's a shame there's nothing riding on it, but as an exhibition match, you couldn't ask for more, could you?
It's potentially a little taster for what could be the final. I think it would be a worthy final for this tournament because quite obviously the two best teams. It'll be a great game of cricket. It's what we're going to see. I think it's almost a little bit of a shame that it is come at this stage of the tournament. Both sides have been quality throughout the whole thing. It would have been really good if we'd seen it in maybe the first couple of weeks, maybe add a bit more jeopardy to either side's tournament. But also, if it does end up being the final, it's almost like it'll come back around too soon. There's a lot of assumptions being made there, but it's nice when you sort of like have a head-to-head at the start, and then it comes back all the way around. You're like, how have these teams performed since then?
Yeah.
But I suppose the flip side to that is it could be a little peek behind what we get. But I'm really looking forward to a good game of cricket. I think the toss is going to be important, and I would imagine if India win it, they're gonna bat first. But again, it's that sort of the weakness that South Africa have chasing. I mean, it's not a weakness per se, but the only real time we see India set a total was in that game against England. They won that comfortably, but they didn't set a total that was out of this world. They scored 229, was it? And England fell in a heap, but I mean that would have been entirely chaseable. So it could be a game where two teams get to both play to their strengths, or two teams maybe have to play in the way that they don't necessarily want to. And I think that's going to make it really interesting battle, whichever way that falls. So that'll be fun. Looking forward to that.
So you're saying that it could be the unstoppable object versus the immovable object? Or the
it
unstoppable
could be the
force.
unstoppable force against the immovable object, or the stoppable force against the movable object.
Yeah.
And both of those
Either
are going to be great.
mouth-watering prospects. Yeah, I'm really excited about this one. I had a look at the odds. It's 60-40 to India. I think it's just a touch closer to that. I mean, I do think that India probably are the favourites, but I think South Africa going quite clearly look like the team most equipped to challenge them, if anyone is going to challenge them. The winner of it almost certainly wins the group as well, which means you're playing either New Zealand, Pakistan, or Afghanistan in the semi-final. So whilst I said there was sort of nothing riding on it, that actually is a fairly big carrot. I think Australia certainly playing better cricket than those three teams. I mean, you could luck out and get Pakistan. Like that would be, if you one. I mean, for the tournament, it would be pretty fun if India v Pakistan and South Africa v Australia as the two semi-finals. Probably for drama, the best.
As much as you could ask for, yeah.
Yeah, I think they're the two biggest rivalries that we could see at this stage. And then, India v South Africa, I think, as the two best teams going into the final would be great. But yeah, there is something to play for in terms of playing, I think, a weaker side versus Australia. But I do think it's close. I mean,
who do you think will win it?
I mean, like I say, I think India are the favourites, and I think that they will win as well. But I can see a lot of reasons why they won't. I think South Africa are one of the teams definitely capable of batting world's greatest chasers, TM, out of a game. And similarly, I think India are one of the teams that are more than capable of blowing away South Africa. So it's I don't know. It's tough. Like a lot of the strengths of these two teams match up very well against each other.
Yeah, that's
in terms of strength v strength. We're probably looking at the best batters v the best bowlers. We're looking at the best team batting first v the best chasers.
Yeah.
There's definitely the potential for some really high quality cricket, and I will be waiting and watching eagerly. Who do you think will win?
I'm going to go South Africa purely because I think it would be absolutely brilliant if South Africa beat everyone in the group stage except the Netherlands. That would be peak South Africa.
That actually, I mean, now that you said that, that'd be a nice thing to happen. Max, I think we're going to wrap up the cricket podcast for this episode now. I do want to say though, to anybody watching on YouTube, we are currently on 13,995 subscribers.
Ooh.
So I only need 5 people. If you're watching now live, or you're watching later, I only need 5 of you to click subscribe to get over to that magical 14,000 out of the unlucky 13,000, and then we're on the road to 15k. So yeah, help us out. Thanks very much for watching or listening. Do click like and subscribe. We will be back on Sunday evening for a mega show as we see which way this World Cup breaks. Goodbye.